Alright, welcome back everyone, this is Shadow Drake. Alright, now we're going to continue with our IC10 tutorials. So the next major thing you're going to need are comparisons. So comparisons are going to be pretty much the next main thing that you're going to be doing, and it's probably going to be what causes a lot of programming mishaps. Because, let's just be honest, it's very easy to accidentally swap and use the wrong comparison that you need. I myself have personally done that wrong many times, where I needed to search and compare a value to a specific thing, and I used the wrong one. But every time you're going to read information from your devices, you're going to compare it to some constant or some other device to decide what you're going to do. So let's get to it. No matter what, your comparisons can be searched, but unfortunately, you have to. But unfortunately, it's going to be either one of those three things. So for the most part, you're going to do branches or sets. Now, when you search for branch, it's going to give you a whole list of branching instructions, and they're all going to have comparisons. And so that may or may not be easy to find. I think it's the same thing with sets, and pretty much what sets. Eh, I'm not entirely sure what they're going to be called. But pretty much what the sets do, I don't know if they're called register. Maybe if I could type in register, it'll show them. Not quite. Okay. But pretty much when you're going to be comparing, you're going to be looking for less than, greater than, equal to, not equal to, greater than and equal, or less than or equal. And you can search for the branches. And so these set registers and branching instruction comparisons actually follow a little bit of a code. And I have it kind of listed right here. And so you have a prefix. Now this prefix is going to either be a B, which is a branch to instruction, a BR, which is a relative branch. So think just like relative jump, but relative branching. Then a set register. I'm going to go over that a little bit, but it follows the same rules. So we have a code. So for example, if we're going to do a normal branch, let's start with B. All right. Now we're going to need a comparison code. And LT will be less than, GT will be greater than, EQ will be equal to, and E will be not equal to, GE is greater than or equal to, or LE is less than or equal to. So let's just go with that. Let's go through all of these going down. So BLT, and as you can see, it turns yellow, which means I have a valid code. And this is branch to line C if A is less than B. So remember, it compares the first two, A less than B. If that holds true, we'll go to C. If not, it'll skip. And that's going to be the same with every single code. So if I do BGT, it'll be checking if A is greater than B before branching to C. Now, relative branching, remember, is kind of like the jump instructions. So it's going to do A is greater than, based on my code, relative branch. If A is greater than B, we'll do a relative jump based on C. So 2 is greater than 1. So it goes back to the same thing. So if I put 5 here, then it's going to do 16 plus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's going to stop here, and that's where it's going to execute. Remember, relative, based on what line it is on. If I take out that R to be a normal branch, then it'll actually just go to 5 here. But you can also put labels here. So if this is true, it'll go to comparisons. If it's not, it won't. And so that's basically how you create a branch instruction. And so based on what you need, and you kind of get used to this code. If not, you can kind of write it down. But these are your 6 primary codes. There are more, but you're more likely going to be using some combination of these in your logic. So we have a prefix, and then we have like a base code. And then we actually have some suffixes. Now, if you add a 0 at the end, it makes that comparison to 0. So let's do BLT-Z. So now you're going to see that we dropped the letter C when I added the Z code to it. And so now it's going to check if A is less than 0. And if so, it will go to line B. So this keeps you from doing something like this. Some number, let's register value less than 0, we go to comparisons. You don't have to do this. If you want to compare to 0, just put a Z at the end, and then you can drop the 0, and everything else follows suit. All right. Then the final suffix is the all instruction at the end. Now you can do that whether the comparison to 0 is here or not. And so what that ends up doing is when you do a jump instruction like this, what'll end up happening is it'll write whatever line number you jump from to your RA register. So that if this was some kind of branching within your main loop, you could do a JRA, and then that JRA will bring you right back to here and resume the code. All right. So that basically squares it away for how to do comparisons with branching. So now let's go back to my grow lights to kind of have to use this. So remember how I said that my grow light is loading the state, and no matter what is happening, it's still just doing this. So let's do a comparison. So we load my state. So what if I compare my lever state to 0? All right. If my lever state is 0, why don't I just go, let's put a yield up here. Why don't I go to the end? Create an end. So what that does is if my lever state is off, it'll constantly go to end and keep going up here. Now that doesn't fix my grow light on and off states, though. Just keep in mind that this will help prevent me from going through this whole entire logic in the chance that this lever state is off. So let's give this a try. Go to easier to read. Alright, so now it should activate almost instantly from a 0 to a 1, depending on how much I have left. So it doesn't matter whether I turn it on here. You see, it turns it back on. But keep in mind, it's still going through the logic of the delay. See, that kind of helps make my program function a little bit faster. Because now I no longer, if it finishes that timer circuit, it will just go straight on. And if it finishes the timer circuit, it will once again check this and go through it again. If I have this off, the timer circuit is gone, and it's just basically looping and waiting. So now, before I do this, what I am going to do is db setting RA. So we're going to write the RA to my housing. And this is only so that I can kind of show what the BEQZ all. Well, first, we're just going to do this. So my state is 0. When I use the all, I know this kind of keeps the code the same. But when I export this, you'll see that I wrote 13 to my RA, which means that the next time, if I put a JRA, it's going to start executing right here. And so this is kind of why I wanted to go over the RA instruction around here, because more than likely, you're going to be getting an RA when you start to use branching and put the AL suffix at the very end. Now, typically, with branching instructions, you're probably going to use the wrong one at some point. Like, for example, if I use BNEZ, go to end, all that's going to do is it's going to mess up your code, and you're going to see that. So what's going to happen then is this is going to take forever. It might not even turn on, to be honest. And you're going to see that this grow light never comes on. And the reason for that is that now my comparison is wrong. When my lever is on, that means that my lever state is no longer equal to 0. So since 1 is not equal to 0, it'll go to end. It literally skips my grow light timer circuit. But when my lever is off, well, the thing is, I'm turning my grow light off because my lever state is off. And you can kind of see where you can really easily mess up comparisons and do the wrong thing. And you just have to kind of go back and kind of logic through what could have gone wrong. So take debugging a few steps at a time, see what your comparisons could have been doing wrong, and absolutely use SDB setting, in this case, else state, to see what's going on. So my else state is 1, and use that information to go back and be like, alright, my lever state is 1, go line by line. Yield, doesn't matter, this is where I get my lever state, and then here it's like, oh, I'm checking to see if that lever state is 0, but it's 1, and so I am going to end. I had the wrong logic here. I need it to be this, because I want it to skip to the end if lever state is 0, not 1. And so little mistakes like that are predominantly where you're going to find issues. Alright, so let me bring back room light control because that has my table. So to recap, your comparison functions with branching basically follow this code. You have your beginning code for a normal branch is just B, relative branch is BR. So that's your prefix. Then you have your main code, LT, GT, EQ, NE, GE, and LE. And then these two suffixes are optional. If you want to do a comparison to 0, you add Z at the end of your base code. If you need to store the line number to your RA register because you intend to use JRA, or you're going to jump to RA, then add an AL at the end. But keep in mind the AL is the final one. You can't put a Z at the end of that because it'll be an invalid code. Z has to go after your comparison code. Alrighty. Now that we got that out of the way, next time we're going to go over the next one, which is the set register. Alright. Hope to see you then. Have a good day.